Welcome to the Rooted Family Podcast, how to mindfully root ourselves and our families so that we can grow strong and aligned. Join me, Erin Sadler, as we discuss all things parenting, kids, health, wellness, and developing a roadmap for life that has you and your family thriving, not just surviving. I am a mom of 3. I'm a teacher with a master's degree in education, a health and wellness coach, a brain health coach, and a life coach. I love coaching kids and grown-ups on how to grow in mindful self-awareness to strengthen connections that support healthy brains. I have developed my own program called Grow Strong Roots, which teaches preschool through 5th grade students how to mindfully integrate academics with social emotional skills, self-regulation, and brain-boosting values, including kindness, gratitude, creativity, resilience, courage, respect, responsibility, healthy eating, and healthy movement. I have found my purpose, and it is to help families, children, schools, and communities learn how to turn stress into success and plant seeds of love, peace, and happiness that will grow and blossom. Speaking, coaching, and teaching the Rooted Family Method for growing strong roots and seeing children and families transform when they understand these concepts is my passion. Because when we grow strong roots, we can withstand any storm life may throw at us. Hey everybody, you are going to love our podcast today. Today we are talking to Melissa Wolak. She is a dear friend of mine, but more importantly, she is a holistic mindset and transformational coach. She is amazing. She's a speaker. She provides education and empowering strategies to support functional, healthy lifestyle changes, productivity, and well-being, with the goal to live in more alignment, decrease the effects of chronic stress, and optimize the brain's potential while preventing cognitive decline and disease. She earned her bachelor's and master's degree in communication science disorders. Hello, smarty. And is earning her brain health coach certification, so there'll be 2 of us, and an advanced mindfulness practitioner certificate. She has 20 plus years working with clients in education, wellness, and performance industry with additional, like if that wasn't enough, training in the areas of brain health, food as medicine, memory, mindfulness, anxiety, and stress management. Melissa is an incredible person, and let me just tell you, she walks the walk that she talks. She has been doing this since I've known her, which is eons ago. When I was just first starting out as a teacher, Melissa was already deep in this brain knowledge and how can I help kids, families, adults live their best lives and lead their healthiest lives with the healthiest brains. So I'm so excited to have her with me. She's a dear friend, and I can't wait to share everything she has to say in this podcast. I mean, when she talks about force fields and when she talks about your brain budget, I think you can all walk away from some major golden nuggets on this one. So let's welcome Melissa. All right, everybody, I'm so glad to have you here today. If you're joining me on 103.5, welcome. If you're joining me on the podcast, thank you so much. Don't forget to leave me a comment or a question. And after today's podcast, you're probably going to want to do that because I have Melissa Wolak with me, and I know I just went through her whole professional bio, so you know how legit she is. But what we're going to do today is talk about mom stuff and talk about brain stuff and just sort of talk about what it means to be mindful in general and how we can give ourselves the best tool to live our best lives. And I just want to say hi, Melissa.
Hello, Erin.
I'm so excited that, one, I figured out the technology to have you on with me because Melissa is actually in Colorado. And as you know, I'm in Wisconsin. So the magic of having a podcast with somebody. So I'm just glad because I'm not that technologically savvy that I figured it out. And also, I did not give this in the professional bio, but Melissa and I go way back to the days when we lived in the ATL. Right, Melissa?
We do. I have a huge smile on my face right now, too, just thinking about all the years we have known each other and our weddings, everything, right? And mindfulness spans. It's so interesting that our interests have come full circle and back around
totally
to brain health and mindfulness. And, I just loved listening to one of your recent podcasts and just really giving people functional, practical ways that they can support themselves and living their best life, like you mentioned.
Well, thank you. And yes, way back in the day, Melissa and I used to be roommates when we both were starting out career girls. And Melissa, I think probably she somehow got into my brain because she has been interested in brains and how they work and helping kids for ages. Sorry, that I didn't mean that in a bad way, Melissa, because I was there with you ages and ages ago. But I think somehow living with her by osmosis, I absorbed some of that knowledge, and then that sort of led me on the path I'm today. So thank you, Melissa, for being such a catalyst in my life. And I think we would be remiss if we did not mention that the glue that brought Melissa and I together is her sister, Meg, who is one of the happiest, most fun, grateful people I think you or I have ever met.
In addition to a very talented teacher as well. Oh,
my God. Yeah, we could go on and on about all of her accolades, too. All right, so to get us started, although we could reminisce the whole show, can you just give us a little bit of background about how your career evolved? Because where you are now and where you started, it's sort of been a journey for you.
It really has been. It's been a progressive path that's built on itself, but I started as a speech-language cognitive therapist, and initially I worked in skilled nursing facilities, so right out of grad school, but I'd already had experience working with children with learning differences as well. So I worked in a skilled nursing facility for a year and said, that was fun, but I'm going to switch it up. And I love kids, just like you do.
Yeah.
And I ended up working at a school for children with learning differences for 3 years in downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it was such an amazing experience. And one of the things that struck me the most was, one, there wasn't a huge difference between the elderly population and children in some ways.
Totally. I totally agree.
And the most striking one was I loved how we learned about multiple intelligences and what really is best for us when we're learning and experiencing the world.
Right, right.
Unbelievable. And I still share that knowledge with adult clients today because I do think it's so valuable. And so many people ask me, why don't I know about this? Why wasn't I taught this?
Exactly.
As I give them learning styles and mindfulness, and they're floored.
Right.
And so grateful.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yes, and you know this. You've seen this.
Mm-hmm.
So then I moved to Colorado, actually, the day after my sister got married.
I know, that was a whirlwind of a time.
That was. But I realized that I needed to change things up a little bit. And I moved to Colorado, and I started working with a private practice and then eventually in a hospital, focusing on treatment of neurological challenges for adults and teenagers. And so specifically working with people post-concussion, brain injury. They may have been diagnosed with cancer and had chemo brain, which is a real thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Early Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, but for the most part, really focusing on the cognitive challenges from brain trauma or how the brain was affected. And I have been doing that for quite some time, so 16 years.
Wow. Gosh, time flies.
And then I started to see how things were shifting with my clients. We were really doing a lot of functional problem solving, getting them back to work. How can they do the practical planning and running of the household?
Right.
How can they still be present parents?
Right.
Because a lot of people were having challenges with that. And I started incorporating more holistic practices into my treatment sessions and saw that so many clients were almost like little rooted flowers, right?
Yeah.
And they were moving towards the sun, right, as they learned these other ways of being and taking care of themselves.
Oh, that's so what do you, like when you, I know for our listeners out there, when you say holistic practice, what does that all entail?
So what that entails is incorporating mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, cognitive, social, really connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Because the mind and body are so connected. And we're really seeing that many illnesses, there are little tiny beginnings of those because of how we're living each day.
Yeah.
And what was so striking with clients is they would say, wow, I'm healthier now after cancer or after a brain injury than I was before because I know how to take care of myself.
Right. And what a huge difference that makes.
It really does. We underestimate that. And so then I started shifting how I was doing treatment. I opened up my own practice and still worked at the hospital, and I started doing more holistic mindset and transformation coaching, specifically around transitions, transitions with relationships and family and, the children and all the phases that they have, that they go through, with communication and as far as health and careers.
Right.
So I've incorporated all that I've learned and eventually did leave the hospital, but still now have a dual practice where I do the mindset coaching as well as cognitive therapy.
Wow. My golly. That's amazing. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is sort of what don't you feel like this is sort of where you've been headed and now you've sort of blossomed into that spot in your life?
I would. I feel so lucky. You and I both share this, that I have always loved the profession I chose.
Right.
We both have, and I think that shows.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Really excited about things.
Yeah.
And it's been this natural progression. It's really felt right, and it all, like I mentioned at the beginning, it just continues to build moving towards this. But this has been an amazing place to reach and work with people from.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I found that resonated with me when you said about the transitions and the change. In fact, I just recorded a podcast about the back to school stress and how so often I think as parents at the end of the summer, we say, oh my gosh, we're just all sick of being together. But is that really it? Or is it that the change has been, when the school supplies are out in Target in July, do our kids start to pick up on that emotionally, that change that's coming and then emotionally identify with that? So how do you help them through those transitions? And I think that's so awesome that you are kind of a transition coach and helping people work through those times when it might be a little emotionally unstable for them.
Right, and we do, change is so uncomfortable for the brain because the brain perceives that as not being safe.
Right.
So when we all even choose to make habits, right, I'm going to start going to a yoga class. And, but getting there can be so challenging. We can find so many excuses because the brain goes, well, that's new. That's not safe. What are you talking about? The danger in a yoga class.
Exactly.
Yes. And so it really is that's why the mindfulness practices and breath and really feeling rooted and grounded is so important because then we know we're safe and we also can understand and acknowledge and really be so much more aware of those unhelpful thought patterns that totally scare the pants off us and get in our way.
Yeah, exactly. And just keeps us out of that default. We're just cruising along on cruise control and helps us to really be a part of our own lives, I guess. So one of my questions that I really am dying to ask you is, what do you wish people knew about their brains that would help them in parenting, as well as their own mental health and well-being? But what do you wish people knew? Because like exactly what you were saying before, when I go to talk to parents, they're like, why is this not like a required course when you become a parent to learn about how your brain works and how your kid's brain works so you can help them? And when I go teach kids, they're like, oh my gosh, nobody ever told us we had neurons in our brains and neurotransmitters. So that part is amazing to me. So what do you wish people knew about their brains that would help them?
Well, first, I just love that you're providing that valuable information to so many people. I can't even
Oh, well,
say how important that is. Yes. And so, we truly take our brain for granted.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Every day. And, I tell my clients, and even when I've, gone to my daughter's, she's in a science girls group, and when I spoke there, and when I teach classes around the community, really knowing that we need to be taking care of our brain as much as we do our car.
Right, yes, for sure.
Put gas in the car, or we plug the car in, and we make sure that it's taken care of, and we check in.
Yeah,
there are indicator lights on the car. When we're running on empty, the car lets you know.
Right.
But if we are running on autopilot, we're not listening to the indicators that the brain and the body are giving us all throughout the day.
Right.
We can't hear it and we can't listen to it. But it is communicating what it needs when we can give some space and some quiet and check in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is always so valuable to me, that people just stop.
Yes.
And
yes.
Check in. What do I need? Am I feeling foggy?
Right.
Am I feeling sluggish? Am I feeling overwhelmed or burdened? Or is there a lot of tension? Do I have a headache? So learning to listen to what the brain is communicating is very powerful.
Yeah.
And then knowing, the brain really is, one, so flexible, and you know the ideas of neuroplasticity, and I think it's so important for other people to hear that term, and knowing that the brain can change and the brain can heal, and the brain does have that resiliency if we take care of it.
Right, exactly. Yes, and I think so many people, and I think even the idea of neuroplasticity, they're like, "Oh, I know I can change," but they don't necessarily know how or to take the time to do it.
Yes, and it actually doesn't take that much time. I sound
Amen.
like my daughter.
Amen.
So, in reality, it's more about frequency and consistency.
Yes. Yep.
So I would so much rather have somebody, whether it's, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Write that time down.
Yeah, I will.
I'll back up.
Okay.
I'll back up a little bit. Okay.
Got it.
So I would much rather see people take 5 minutes a day to breathe or to meditate or to stretch than I would see them do it for an hour 1 day a week.
Agreed.
Not that both aren't great, but we really start to rewire the brain, create these stronger habits and a foundation for ourselves. And the brain is wired to keep us safe. And so it does have a negativity bias and a filter. So it's often scanning our environment for what could go wrong.
Yep.
And it's in survival mode, which now we hear quite a bit. Well, what is survival mode? Well, here we're staying safe. And we used to have to look out for saber-toothed tigers and, really pay attention because we wanted to live. But now our fast-paced lives are just keeping our nervous system more activated.
Yep.
And we notice the negative more often. And knowing that our brain does that, there are practices that we can put in place to start rewiring and shifting our lens and how we see the world.
100% agree. And very often whenever somebody tells me I don't have the time, because they think I'm going to say, like, you have to sit down and meditate for an hour. And I'm like, when you go to the grocery store, do you have enough time to turn your car off and sit in the car for 1 minute and just take some deep breaths? Really. 1 minute in the grocery store parking lot will do tremendous things for your brain.
At times you can also do that 1 minute when you're standing in one of those really long grocery store lines.
So true.
You still have a little stimulation coming your way, but I always laugh with people when I'm in a long line and they're like, I'm so sorry. I say, it's an opportunity for me to stop and breathe, and really I can't do anything else standing in this line.
Right, exactly. Good. Yeah.
Except maybe covet your chocolate bar that you have on the...
Or maybe look at your People magazine. But I find when I have the urge to reach for my phone to entertain myself or to distract myself, that is the time when I feel that feeling that I know that I need to take the time to do some quiet breathing. And that took some training too, to not just automatically reach, but to feel the feeling and know that that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling, actually need me to breathe and not distract.
And that is a perfect example of paying attention and listening. There was your indicator light.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, this is that moment. And you listened and you found a really healthy way to respond.
Yeah. Yep. And one that's brain building and not brain, destructive.
Yes, I talk to my clients often about a brain budget. And people don't necessarily like budgets.
But they are necessary parts of life.
But yes, I mean, we need to look at our time and our energy and our brain power as being as significant to our lives as our money.
Oh my gosh, I love that thought. I love brain budget. I might have to steal that and help when I talk to other parents about it, because I think that's so true. And it's so interesting because when I say everybody has a budget, I was even listening to a podcast with Melinda Gates on it, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, and she was talking about a budget that she has to keep for their charitable work. So everybody's got a budget, and a brain budget is something that I think everybody should really take a look at. How much do you have in your bank account? And how much do you want to give away freely? And how much do you want to save for the people that you love the most?
Exactly. So I talk to people about how do you spend your brain dollars?
Yeah.
What are deposits? What are withdrawals? What are investments? And pay attention to your savings or your reserve.
Oh my gosh. Love that. That was
right. And, this wasn't my original concept. We actually did use this with our treatment of people with brain injuries. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Why are we only using this framework for people after their foreheads have been injured and their brains are healing? I think we could all use this right now.
Oh, my gosh.
And it affects everything, how we commit to things.
Right.
One of my best friends, and you have met Olga.
I have.
She loves to use this with her coworkers and say, well, I have this project, but do you want me to spend the brain dollars on the one you just gave me?
Yeah.
Or the one you gave me yesterday? Because I don't have the brain dollars to do both.
Gosh, that's incredible.
And we started to use it here with my daughter, too, right? Just to think, is that how you want to use your brain dollars today?
Yeah.
Suck in.
Oh, my gosh. I was just thinking...
Sometimes not.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking my own children would probably say that, give me the half eye roll. But I would say that's a great response as a parent, too, when kids are asking you to do things and that they could usually do themselves. And would you like me to spend my brain dollars on that when it's something that your brain is capable of doing? That's pretty amazing. I like that.
Right, because if I spend my brain dollars on cleaning up your room, right, then I don't have the brain dollars necessarily to schedule your play dates.
Totally.
Or camp, and that's where they go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think that's such a tangible way to do it with kids. And to just keep that mental health component in them thinking about you can't exhaust yourself all the time. I think that's a great way to look at it for kids and activities too. With all these activities kids have, saying you only have so much brain capacity to do these activities. You only have so many brain dollars. How much do you want to contribute to this versus this? And then have them weigh which one they'd rather put the value of their brain dollars towards.
That is perfectly reframed to fit those situations.
See, I told you I'd steal it, girl. I was not kidding.
It really does, though. I mean, people go, oh, because that really builds the awareness of what really does give us energy, what feeds our soul, what makes us feel better. And us even modeling that and using that language and vocabulary can be so wonderful for our children. And honestly, it can also be wonderful for our parents and in-laws.
Yeah, for sure. Good call.
Because they kind of like it too. Because it's like, wait a minute, I don't have the brain dollars to do that. It's family gatherings or the holidays.
Right.
I plan ahead and I say, hey, we only have so many brain dollars during the visit.
Oh my gosh.
How do we want to prioritize our spending and our time?
I love that. I mean, think about family vacations, trips, when everybody, I'm thinking, my family with all the kids in there, and we all have to set up what everybody wants to do and compromise and work through that. I mean, how do we want to spend our brain dollars? I love that. That's so good, Melissa.
Feel away.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I love the idea too, with not only spending, but the deposit part that you talked about earlier too. Because my guess is if we all sit down, we can probably list out how we withdraw all day long. But our list of deposits is, my guess, I know for me, not equal to the amount of withdrawal I have, and really making a conscious effort to even those out.
You have hit the nail on the head. So often when I ask clients to list each, when we first start working together, we can blame the negativity bias a little bit too. Like everybody jumps right to the withdrawals.
Right,
well,
right.
I do this and this and this and this, and the list could go on and on. But then I say, all right, well, let's look at the positives, those deposits. What are they? And that's a cognitive task in itself.
Yeah.
It's an awareness task. And oftentimes they take the whole task home with them and have to bring it back.
Oh, I'm
they
sure.
do really need to put more thought towards it. It just doesn't come automatically.
No, right.
So, it is, that in itself is a great way to rewire the brain and really check ourselves before we overcommit, because so many people are overwhelmed and overstimulated, and you can really, that's a good indicator. Once again, we don't have the gas gauge, but we can gauge by our spending and how we're feeling and start making those connections.
Oh, thank you so much. Now you said it so eloquently, I probably would have said, check yourself before you wreck yourself, because that's just, Melissa knows me well enough to know that that's how I would probably roll that out. But same idea. Just, you say it so gracefully.
That too. Simplicity is more powerful, and people remember that. And the speech language part of me loves acronyms and rhymes.
Yes, exactly. Well, to veer to another, I have, Melissa, I have so many questions for you, and so I might just have to have you on again. But I want to get to talking about emotional boundaries. You're so good with setting boundaries, and I know you've taught about setting boundaries. And in my upcoming book, with dealing with frustrated kids, I talk about setting emotional boundaries. So when you do your work with boundaries, how do you teach people to set boundaries, especially when it comes to family?
So, one, we can draw back on this brain budget idea, right? So that's sometimes very helpful for people because they can gauge how much energy they have as far as the interactions and how much time, and do I stay in a hotel? Do I stay with my family during a visit?
Yeah.
Or, okay, my child is losing it. We've all been there when we're going, oh, is their head going to start spinning? What's going to happen next? I stopped watching those movies. Those movies aren't good for me. I don't want to live it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I totally agree with you and the concept of breath and getting that space for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because our reactions, they're so automatic, and oftentimes they come from a place of worry and hurt and fear.
Right.
And if we can take even 3 breaths and give ourselves some space so we can respond from a grounded place, or at least choose our response.
Right, yes.
We feel more empowered. And oftentimes the response that I ask people to make is leave the room.
Yes, I do too.
You can simply leave the room. Or I also work with scripting. So in one of my courses and workshops, I actually have a whole list of different situations and phrases that you could just pull out. Give me a minute. I need some space. I'm going to go for a walk. Right? But to say why, sometimes I even look at my daughter and say, I'm going to need a minute to decide how I want to respond to this.
Yes.
In a way that I know I'll feel good about and you can hear me.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that's such good role modeling when they see, and I don't know in the people you work with, but they always seem shocked when I'm like, you're allowed to leave. Like, you can take a moment, but yes, explain why. And then that's such a good role modeling on your part as the parent to show a child that if they are in the same situation and somebody's not being kind to them or not treating them respectfully, it's okay to say, I need a moment away from this.
It truly is. And I had my lesson with this. So my husband and daughter joke all the time that I'm a big breather.
Shocking.
There she goes again. She's breathing. And I realized, I really do need to put some languaging with this. Yeah. I need to give them a reason. Like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Hey, I'm processing this. Hey, I just need a minute. And although I have this all written down for my clients, I wasn't necessarily, it's so ingrained in me, I wasn't expressing it, and they needed to hear it to make that connection.
Yeah.
And so, and even just excusing yourself to go to the bathroom sometimes is a really great way to go. So there are foundational things to get the space first. Mm-hmm. And then I really like to look at how does our body react in different situations, and us processing the sensations that are happening to really indicate, is this good for me? Is this what I want to be doing? Is this what I want to commit to?
Yeah.
And how do I want to handle this situation? Because if I go into, and we've all done it, right? Sometimes we go into bribery mode with our children, especially when their head is spinning and flipping out.
Sure, yes.
And so it's like, well, wait a minute. If we can get that space and breathe and ground for a moment, we can see, like, oh, wait a minute, is that the path that I really want to start on?
Right.
Because if I start this now,
I'm going to be buying Maseratis.
Next time. And next time. And it just gets bigger and more expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a sports car budget for bribery. Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I think that can be such a hairpin trigger reaction for parents to just be like, let's bribe it out. Like, you don't even think about it sometimes. It just leaps into your head. Your kid wasn't asking for a bribe. That's just because that's your reaction. So taking that moment to respond and thinking, okay, how do I want to deal with this?
Well, and even you had such a good point in one of your earlier podcasts about, you mentioned a young girl who's sort of breaking down.
Yeah.
And you could really see questions needed to be asked. We needed to look at this with a curious, open mind and going, wait, what's going on right now? What does your body feel like? How are you feeling? What emotions are coming up? And even as adults, it's good for us to check in, especially when we are setting boundaries. And I like to think of it almost as energy protection.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Oftentimes with my clients, I talk to them about how they can protect their energy, as we were talking about earlier, with setting boundaries, and they can create this actual, almost tangible visual force field around themselves. So I have a dad who's a hockey player who has goalies that have his back. Right, so he feels supported, and he has his safe space. I have a policewoman who has a wolf pack. For me, I'm more of the Star Wars person, I guess. I'm realizing more and more I use analogies and metaphors from Star Wars all the time. And, I kind of think of that force field that comes up around me with a beautiful blue light that allows me to still be present with people, but it just gives me that room.
Right.
To feel what's best for me, to choose my action steps, to make those conscious decisions, right? Before I overcommit, or because we know, coming from the South sometimes, I can be like, sure, yes. Rewiring my people pleaser habits. And a lot of us do that, especially moms. Fall into that place.
Yep.
And dads can do it too, where we'll say, oh, yes. And then we go back to our calendar, or then we go back and check in and go, wait, how am I going to do that?
Right. Yeah.
Now I'm going to sacrifice my health, my time to do this. And if we just feel uncomfortable sometimes. So, we had talked about getting physical space. Excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Let me check my calendar. But this is just a mental, right in the moment, give yourself that illusion and idea of a force field coming up that protects your energy.
I think that's amazing. I think that's such a good idea, and exactly what you were saying, because I too, I'm moving along the spectrum of not being a people pleaser, but I definitely started out deep in people pleaser mode, and then I'm moving down. But I have to remember that, to put that force field up and give myself that space, give myself that one night of sleep and really think about it, really sit down and do the pros and cons, which back in the day, I never did. I would just say, okay, yeah. And I think too, just not feeling guilty about it when I do say no.
Yes, or apologizing or justifying. Yeah. So that's something we also address in my programs because that's important too.
I love it. Well, Melissa, I have a million more questions, so I'll have to have you on again. But before we go, will you tell everybody, and I will link everything in the show notes, so you don't have to have a pen and paper by you right now. But Melissa, will you tell everybody where they can find you so they can get more awesome knowledge from you?
So I can be found on YouTube, Melissa Wolak, Instagram, Facebook, as well as my website, melissawolak.com. And if you go to my website or Instagram, you can download a free acronym I created that really creates a great foundation for self-care and brain health that I titled Breathe. And so that will, when we're kind of lost and overwhelmed, it's a foundation we can go back to, and I wanted people to have access to that because my clients have loved it and actually called it the Holy Grail.
Oh.
What am I supposed to do to take care of myself and my brain? Oh. And so, I wanted to share that with people who are listening, and they can access that from the website or Instagram. And, I'm sure in the show notes you'll show all this, like you mentioned.
Yes,
and
for sure.
People can also email me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I am blessed to have you in my life and to know you. And I'm so grateful that you are such a touchstone during this whole journey of starting the Rooted Family, and that I do have somebody that knows sort of I can vibe some ideas off of. So I just appreciate it so much, Melissa. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. It was really my pleasure, and I am honored to be part of this journey. You are giving so much valuable information to people, and I've said that before, but I really do mean it. And I'm grateful for all our years together and all the collaborating we'll do going forward.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited about that. All right, everybody. Peace, love, and